Hey everyone, hey everyone, hey everyone. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. And I have a very interesting letter from a fan to read to you guys. It's in response to my recent video on this channel, which we will link at the end of this video, about whether or not music influences or can influence bad behavior. And this very passionate letter from this guy reads as such. He wrote it to me as it was a response to my video and insinuated that I should tailor my comments based upon sort of the information he brings to the table here. So I imagine that he doesn't disagree with me reading this letter or sort of making it public. I mean, obviously, I have not shared this guy's name or email here, so and it doesn't seem like there's any kind of personal information that makes it into this as far as something that could go back to this guy or identify this guy. So I'm just going to read this email because it is a pretty interesting perspective. Hey Fantano, just wanted to comment on your recent video about music influencing bad behavior. Let me start off by saying that I am a drug dealer who sells more than $1,000 of marijuana every week to college kids. When I was starting out, I am from a middle-class family, so I always had support from both parents, food in the fridge, and lived a pretty good life. When I was 16, I started getting into rap music, and my favorite rapper today is still B.I.G. Without his songs about selling crack, I would have never become a drug dealer because I had no reason to be, but his songs like 10 Crack Commandments planted the idea in my mind of selling drugs as easy to be fair. But I think it is false to paint the people who are influenced to, I'm hitting a few grammar issues here, who are influenced to commit crimes from these songs about selling drugs and killing as desperate for a means to survive. I had a regular job at a store, but I quit because selling drugs was better. Not everybody who was influenced by these artists isn't the stereotypical ghetto kid who has no dad and needs some money to put food in the fridge. P.S. I think people who are trying to push the responsibility on other people, e.g. blaming the artists, have a point. Okay, so this guy actually thinks blaming the artists, the people who do that, have a point. But when you are talking in a scenario when you were talking in a scenario in front of a judge, it is still the person's fault for committing the crime in the first place. Hit me up if you have any questions about kids being influenced by popular media to consume drugs, especially at high school and college age. After all, this is my life. Keep up the good videos. All right. I mean, thank you for the letter there, and thank you for that very interesting perspective there. I by no means meant to paint as if there are no outlying examples or even a great deal of examples of people who, just sort of start selling drugs of their own volition, or without sort of the systematic or cultural pressures that we sort of see somebody who is probably in the position of a Chief Keef is. I just kind of merely used Chief Keef as an example because that was sort of the example that the person who wrote the letter cited. I've seen a few National Geographic episodes of what is that show, Drugs Inc., and quite a few people who participate in drug dealing. They don't come from the background of a Chief Keef. However, I think we can sort of talk and that there's room for a moral discussion here. I noticed that you're talking about selling marijuana. B.I.G. was rapping about selling crack. I noticed you're not selling crack. There's probably a moral conundrum to that because crack can be pretty destructive. Although I don't know if ethically if you feel like there would be anything wrong with selling crack. But I guess my point is I don't feel like selling marijuana is really all that much of a moral conundrum when you exist within a society that for the most part is pretty lax on marijuana, when you come from a generation that for the most part doesn't really see marijuana as all that bad and destructive. The studies show that it's not really all that bad or destructive. You're just kind of providing a service within a society that refuses to legalize this drug, really because, you have lobbyists from the tobacco and from the alcohol industry who don't want it to be the case because they continue to make record profits because their drug, recreational drug, is legal. Meanwhile, marijuana, for the most part, is not. There are a lot of places where it is, but there are a lot of places, like in my home state, where it isn't completely legal. I mean, you do catch a fine, I think, if you're caught with it. But maybe not so much that you would be selling or distributing. First I want to say to this guy, be careful. I don't want you going to jail over this, but obviously, you're doing this, you're selling more than $1,000 of it a week. I imagine that you must have your shit together to some degree. Maybe B.I.G. did influence you to do this, but again, I sort of wonder here, is this really all that much of a moral conundrum? You bring up killing here, and I sort of wonder, because Biggie rapped about killing people in a song, would you kill somebody? And not out of defense. I mean, obviously, even without a rap song coming into the picture, would you kill somebody just in cold blood? Because I mean, we could even talk about moving beyond Biggie here. I mean, Johnny Cash shot a man in Reno just to watch him die in a song, but it's still in a song. And I'm yet to sort of hear of anybody who would just kill somebody because they just heard it in a Johnny Cash song and that's it. I feel like if a Johnny Cash song, excuse me, or a Biggie song could influence you to kill somebody, okay, and it's not that art has no influence whatsoever, and that certainly was not my point in the original video. What I'm saying is that there are things that rank higher on the influenceometer, if there was to be such a one, than a Johnny Cash song or a Notorious B.I.G. song. You know what I mean? Like, sure, Biggie may have rapped about selling drugs, okay, and that may have influenced you. It may have planted the seed in your mind, but you actually took the step to start doing that, and you saw that there was actually a monetary benefit to that. You're making more than $1,000 a week. Okay, you're making more than $1,000 a week. I imagine there are some weeks where you're making almost $2,000. Obviously, if you were making $100 a week, you wouldn't just stick with drug dealing just because Biggie rapped about it in a song. There are obviously other factors here influencing you to continue doing this. You find it easy. You're selling to college kids, so the risk is probably kind of low. You're making a lot of money off of it. It seems like you've come through with a pretty beneficial model here. It seems like there are more things at work influencing you than Notorious B.I.G. Okay, and let's not sort of assume and let's not assert that just because somebody comes from a suburban area and both parents are in the home and both parents are relatively supportive, that person is automatically well adjusted, that everything as far as problems in regards to that person are handled and taken care of. There are a lot of people who come from suburban homes with two parents who are pretty maladjusted because, they could have mental problems, or maybe they're bullied by other people, or, they have underlying issues that maybe their parents don't really notice. You hear stories all the time of kids who, what about what about those girls who tried to kill their friend because they heard some crap about Slender Man, Or what about, a lot of these kids who get themselves in situations where they bring a gun to school or something, and they're coming from a suburban home with two parents who love them. Clearly there are issues there that can still arise in a two-family home in a suburban area, and clearly, there are issues there greater than just that person being exposed to a song that advocates or depicts in a glorious way a bad thing. Again, my point is not that music does not influence. It's just that there are things like culture, authority figures, economic benefits. There are a lot of factors and motivators that I think rank above music as far as what makes people do the things that they do. And music you could lump in with just all kinds of entertainment. And, if a song from Biggie could influence you to kill somebody for no reason whatsoever, I mean, really, what couldn't influence you to kill somebody for no reason whatsoever? A movie could have done it. A suggestion from another person could have done it. Peer pressure, that sort of thing. Your parents telling you it's totally cool could have done it. If you're that impressionable, most likely anything will leave an impression on you. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't really think I have that much of an argument with this guy or anything like that. He would most likely agree with a lot of the points that I'm making here. But I just thought his example in his letter here was very interesting to highlight because, he does cite the idea that, that music does certainly have an influence. And like I said in my previous video, it does. I just think there are bigger influencers than music. Because if that were to be the case, I mean, there are a lot of horrendous things that are advocated for in song, in movies, or at least depicted in a way that is not, all that nefarious or something. Look at fucking death metal heads. Some of the most gruesome, disgusting, awful things that you can ever imagine are depicted within the lyrics and in the cover art of death metal. But, is there a rash of violent serial killers coming from the death metal world? Not really, So, I mean, I feel like you could only blame music so much. Obviously there have to be other factors outside of, hey, this song said this. When it comes to somebody making a decision to do something, especially something that, there's a moral conundrum presented, or it's against the law and you could potentially land in jail. And that's really all I'm saying. So, thank you for the letter. Thank you for bringing up your example. I thought it, led to a cool little discussion here. And let me know what you guys think down in the description box, not in the description box, rather, but the comments about our writer's here decision to sell drugs based off of, sort of an influence that he caught off of a B.I.G song. And, that's it. I will talk to you guys very soon. You're the best. Bye. Here's the other video next to my head that I talked about earlier.